Hey you guys, welcome back to Promote the Goat Homestead. I'm Amelia and today's video is going to take place in the kitchen. Occasionally I do get a rut. Even though I enjoy cooking, sometimes I don't know what to make for dinner. So to find inspiration, I like to watch videos like this, see what other people are trying, watch cooking shows, look through cookbooks, anything like that. Anything to make it so that when I get in the kitchen, it doesn't feel like a chore. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you guys 5 different meals that we had for dinner. This includes a roasted chicken, a pasta dish, a beef roast, a taco dish, and pizza. So let's go ahead and get in the kitchen and we will start with Monday's meal. I'm going to start off by adding some butter and then my seasonings all into a bowl. So this would be salt, pepper, garlic, and rosemary. And I just mix that together until it's softened. The chicken that I'm working with is still fairly frozen, but I'm able to do my best and try to get the butter mixture in between the skin and the meat. This is how I found to give the best flavor in this dish versus putting it on the outside of the skin. And then I make sure, because this is still very frozen, I like to cover this with aluminum foil before I stick it in the oven, and I baked it for a couple hours at 450 until it came to temperature. Our side, we are having roasted potatoes. This is like one of my go-to side dishes. Everybody likes it. It's very simple. Just dice everything up, throw it into a pan. I add olive oil, salt, pepper, and garlic. And then you can see I added little dabs of butter on top, and then I'll just go through once they're in the oven and I'll stir it at like every 20 minutes, and these bake at 450 for about an hour. We're also having honey glazed carrots. This sounds fancy, but it's super simple. You just go through and slice up all your carrots till they're roughly the same size. You could use baby carrots if you wanted to. I like to saute these in a pan first to help give them some color, and then I'll cover them up for a little bit and steam them. Here you can see I'm adding my seasoning, salt, pepper, and then I also add butter with this with the olive oil. Here I'm adding the honey, and I do this after they're about fork tender. And then I just stir it all up just so that they're all covered in the honey. Here's our roasted chicken after it comes out of the oven. And here it is all plated up. This was super yummy. Always a crowd pleaser. So I took the roasted chicken that we had, the bones, the meat, all of it, the whole carcass. I went ahead and I threw it in my Instant Pot. I added some water, and then I added additional seasonings of salt, pepper, garlic, and more rosemary, a bay leaf as well. And so after it went all night, I did it on low on the slow cook button. Now I am straining this. I'm doing that just because bits of rosemary can get in there. Skin, bones, stuff like that. It just helps catch it all so I don't have to worry about that being in my chicken stock. And then I like to use this for various things. For tonight's dinner, we're going to be using this to make a white sauce. And here I'm also just going through and picking all the meat off the bones. And this is also going to be part of our dish that we're going to make. It's going to be almost like a chicken Alfredo, I guess, type of take on it. It's just a much quicker version of a chicken Alfredo using a leftover chicken that you have in your fridge. Here I'm shredding some Parmesan cheese, and we'll need that as well. Next, we're going to make a roux, and that is just melted butter with flour added to it, and then some type of liquid. It's usually milk or chicken stock. I'm using both today. You can see in that back pan, I'm adding chicken to the pan with some melted butter just to help give it a little bit more flavor. I'll also add salt and pepper to it. I'm trying to get my butter melted here and then adding my flour. And you want to cook that for a little while, maybe a minute or two, just to help get rid of that flour flavor. And so that's what I'm doing, and I'm stirring it just so that it doesn't burn. Once it has gone for a minute or two, here I'm adding the milk a little bit at a time, and it'll actually thicken fairly quickly as you're doing this. Just make sure that you keep stirring just so that things don't burn. And then here I'm adding just a little bit of more chicken stock just to help give it a little bit extra flavor. And here I'm seasoning everything. And you'll make sure when you're seasoning stuff like this, make sure that you're tasting it as you're cooking too. And here I'm adding Parmesan cheese, just to kind of get more of that Alfredo-y type flavor. And I'm adding the sauce onto my chicken. And I stirred around just to make sure I'm not adding too much sauce to it. And then I ended up adding the rest of it after it's in there. I also wanted to have broccoli with this just because I think of chicken Alfredo either with like broccoli or peas. After my pasta was done cooking, I went ahead and poured all the water out of it, and then I added more butter to it just to add a little bit more flavor and to help keep the noodles from sticking to everything. And here I'm just getting everything plated. We serve this with a side salad. And I'm just getting the sauce on top and then adding a little bit of broccoli, and there you have it. It was pretty quick and easy dinner. On the next day, we had a beef roast. I think this was a chuck roast, and we're just searing in the pan. Make sure that we're seasoning as we're doing it with salt, pepper, and garlic. And Noah's actually helping me with this, and so he's doing all the seasoning and I'm doing the filming. After it's seared on both sides, then we add some red wine. Make sure if you're cooking with wine that it's a wine you would also want to drink. And then we're adding some chicken stock. You can also use beef stock. I did not have any on hand, but chicken stock I did from that roasted chicken that we had. And this just helps give it extra flavor. And then we covered this with aluminum foil and into the oven it went. I believe it was at 250 for 3 to 4 hours, just depending on how big your roast is. To go with this, we're doing sauteed green beans. This is another favorite side dish that we have, and these were actually green beans from the garden from last year. I quickly realized that my pan was too little, and so I ended up grabbing a bigger one. To go with this, we are having mashed potatoes. So I'm just dicing up potatoes and getting them into a pot. After my green beans have all kind of thawed out, I started adding olive oil, some butter, salt, and pepper, and I'm just sauteing these until they get a little bit of color to them, but they're tender as well. And I pulled the roast out of the oven, and I'm checking it just to make sure that it is done. It's nice and tender. And then so I let it just sit there and rest, and I cover it back up with foil just to help keep it warm. And for our mashed potatoes, I like to add butter, sour cream, a little bit of milk, and then salt and pepper to taste as well. And I just mash this all together until it has a nice consistency. And like I said before, make sure that you taste stuff. Mashed potatoes is one of those where I always have to make sure that I have to taste them, make sure they're seasoned well. And here it is on the plate. For the following night, since I had the leftover roast, I decided to make tacos. So here I am just shredding my cheese up. And then for the meat, I'm just going to reheat it on the stove and add some taco seasoning to it, which it's salt, pepper, garlic, onion powder, cumin, and some chili powder. And I just pretty much saute that until it's warmed through. This was a very quick and easy dinner. Here I'm just plating it up with what I like to eat. Just the meat, the cheese. My sister gave us some really delicious salsas. So this was corn salsa and peach salsa, which I actually want to try making and canning this summer. And then sour cream and lettuce. And there we go. We got a delicious taco salad. Every Friday is pizza night in our house. So here I am getting the dough put all together. I'll make sure to leave a link in the description for this recipe so you can check it out. It's a blog post, and this person also has a video on YouTube as well, so you can check that out. I want to do a more detailed video on pizza because I also make my own sauce and just talk about ingredients and such, but the more details I will share when I get around to making that video. There I am covering it with a towel, and I'm just going to let it sit and do its thing all day and rise. Here I'm getting the toppings ready for our pizza. So I like to use a mixture of mozzarella and Parmesan. Here I'm just shredding our mozzarella. And then I mentioned that I like to make my own sauce, and the base is with tomato paste. And then I add water and olive oil to this, and I mix it together until it's more like a sauce consistency. And here I'm adding my seasonings. I add a little bit of sugar, some garlic, some salt, pepper, and then basil. The recipe that I use actually makes 2 different crusts. So here I am just dividing it in half. We usually do a pizza for the kiddos and then one for ourselves just because the kids don't like what Noah and I have on our pizza. So here I am just spreading the dough out, trying to get it in a nice circle, but not making it too thin. And then I'm just adding all our toppings, you know, the sauce, the cheese, which I do half mozzarella, half Parmesan, like I mentioned. And the kids like to have green olives. Occasionally, one of our boys likes to have mushrooms on the pizza, but we were out that evening. And then Noah ended up getting some pepperoni, so we put pepperoni on their pizza as well. And then we throw this in a 500-degree oven. We like to bake ours on a pizza stone that we have, and this bakes for roughly 11 minutes. And here I'm just adding the finishing touches to our pizza, and we like to have pickled jalapenos. Usually I like to do ground beef, but I didn't have any cooked up, so I used ham on my half of the pizza. And this is what it looks like when it comes out of the oven. Okay, you guys, that is it for today. I hope you guys saw something that you liked and that you want to try and that gave you a little bit of inspiration in the kitchen. Thank you for taking time out of your day and joining me. Don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe button, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.